Well, hello everybody. I hope you're doing good today. Uh, Summer has hit. I put up a couple videos of me walking outside and riding my bicycle as usual, talking about topics and whatnot. I just can't help it. Um, obviously, every week, uh, every day, there's something more to talk about regarding the shite show, regarding the cascading predicaments that we find ourselves in at this period of time, passing time. So, yeah, LA burned down, fire, and now it's having riots. And, you just keep reading more and more about what's going on from various perspectives. And more and more, it just seems like, well, this is built into the socioeconomic and cultural structure of the whole, society, community. And it's not going to go away. It's just going to get worse because of the poly crisis or the meta crisis or because of ongoing collapse of civilization or whatever. You don't believe it's happening. That's because we're human supremacists and we all think we're really great, the best thing that ever happened to the universe, and so on, when really we're just embedded uh, life forms within this great nature of ours that we all depend on, and we're no better or worse than any other life form. Uh, you know, arguably we're worse because I don't think slime mold or ants or dogs talk about good and evil much. So, whatever rationalizations you have for good and evil, whatever beliefs you maintain about the origin of the universe or whatever, right and wrong, uh, it's relative to a certain degree, isn't it? Because it's Homo sapien culture doing the storytelling. And then, depending on our circumstances, how we were brought up, where we were born, and so on, we have different stories to tell. And then we go to the audience capture machines, to all the social media, and we echo what we've learned, what we've been conditioned to believe, or that we just share the stories, which is what we do. We're storytelling machines and story believing machines and concocting machines and so on. So there's not much you can do. I was on this Trust Cafe platform for a while, and it was just a pernicious place trying to get me to behave properly. You get voted up in trust as you post things or interact with people. So it's already capturing your attention and gamifying the experience and making you addicted to it. I just want to see if people will approve of what I'm thinking. And so you go there. Somebody votes you up, you're so happy. Instead of a like, you get trust points. And then once you receive 100% trust, you get like a bronze level or a silver or gold or platinum or double diamond, triple diamond. It's almost like network marketing. All these social media networks are funny. They try to create something new, something better. I'm a Facebook refugee, so I'm over on Trust Cafe or whatever. And they just wind up making more,
How can I possibly trust you if you don't want to go on my social media platform?
stuff to stimulate your brain hormones and make you addicted to their platform. People get really mad at you. People are strangers. They're asking you why you communicate in a certain way when you're being polite and you're just trying to share information and you don't really have time to engage with them in a long conversation or a debate. If I respond to somebody, in good faith and I say something, 2 or 3 paragraphs, maybe more than they wanted to read or something, but thoughtfully and so on. And then you get criticized for that because it's a wall of words, or they have a bone to pick with something you said or whatever. They're all strangers. I don't know any of these people. And of course, if somebody says, cool, man, I follow that too, or whatever, then you kind of feel good about that. But it's a complete waste of time. I could be, just talking to somebody down at the cafe in town, or taking a walk or a bike ride, or writing a book, or doing a million other things, gardening. Instead, you're engaged with strangers on social media. Anyway, all this is pernicious. There's a lot going on with AI nowadays, and that's all crazy as hell. I talked about that on my bike ride, just musing on it. Um, it's just going to go from crazy to crazier to mad to loony to pathological. I don't think we get out of it alive. Nate Higgins was talking to somebody, I forgot his name. He's one of the Schmachtenberger team. What's his name? He's an educator. He's a nice guy, interesting. But they were talking about AI and education. I don't think, obviously, he made a great point that these large language models are more like a librarian, a really good, focused, helpful librarian. So instead of engaging with them with LLMs on metaphysics or something like that, or trying to turn them into your partner, it might be better just to use them as a tool. And one good way to use LLMs as a tool is to just write very detailed prompts telling the LLM, the system, what you're looking for, what you want, why you want it, what you're focused on, and asking for books and academic papers and URLs and stuff, lots of references. And the more detailed you are in telling the librarian what you want, the better response you'll get, and you'll get some good reference materials. And like I said before, then you have to go to work vetting all the reference materials, looking at the websites, the authors of the papers, all that kind of stuff. That's if you want to do good work, good research, good journalism, whatever. I do it for fun as a hobby, but I'm not a professional journalist or anything like that. But if I were, I would use these tools like a librarian. Obviously, if you get some content, some paragraphs written by the machine, you have to rewrite it yourself. You have to go through it, add your voice, rewrite the thing. But it can come up with 2 or 3 good paragraphs on something that's well known about, where there's tons and tons of data on it. But it's not a writing tool, really. It's a resource for getting information. Like when I'm writing my story, my book, my scripts, I might want to know some detailed information about, I don't know, pick something, Osaka in the early 1930s. And I want some details, some photographs, some archives, some stories, poems, music, whatever, because I kind of want to have an idea of the environment to pick my imagination. And of course, if you were a set designer or a designer of a film or a TV show or whatever, in the design department on some level, this would help you a lot to get information so that you could create costume silhouettes, color palettes, so that you would understand what kind of automobiles might be in the shot. Lots of things like that. Anyway, it kind of fills things out a bit. If you don't know anything about Indian history, for example, India, right? This guy I follow, Indie.ca. Indica is also what the Greeks, I think, used to use as codex or essays or whatever. that they would write about India, that region of the world. It wasn't India at the time. It had all these different kingdoms and so on. But it's called an Indica. So I found that interesting. I didn't realize that. But let's say you don't know about Indian history and you want to know. There's tons of good information out there that you can go through. And it gives you greater depth, color, perceptions, perspectives on the subject. And it's a great tool for that. But then there are trade-offs, right? I mean, environmental trade-offs. There's problems with the supply chains. And of course, we don't want to go into all the socioeconomic trade wars, you know, how nationalism and neocolonialism and neoliberalism and all these different things impact all of it. You know, every data center has complex supply chains. Anyway, without getting too much into the AI part of thing, because that's not what I really wanted to share with you today. It just came up. Anyway, it's interesting to look into that and to learn how to defend yourself against the onslaught, because most people aren't going to see what hit them with AI, AGI, whatever, LLMs. You know, the whole thing, it's a big trend now. You're going to make money with Chat GPT and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to lose the race. You're going to be left behind if you don't, you know, absorb all this stuff right away. Most of it's just marketing and pump and dump, in my opinion. But, you know, it's useful as well, and I'm sure it's going to do some good. You know, data science really took a big step up during the pandemic, for example. Data science is a thing. Good things can come of all of this technology, but we're using it for profit, right? That's the main reason why we have these things. So there's tons of investment, there's competition, there's great power competition. You know, we're weaponizing things. Thucydides traps, multipolar traps coming out of it. You know, we have to compete with China and Russia and everybody else, all of our enemies if you're in the West, blah, blah, blah. And also, you know, it's like you can't get the processed materials to make the stuff that's in the data center without trading with the world, in particular China. And of course, we're still colonial, so the wealthy countries and corporations and whatever go to the global south or whatever you want to call it and extract stuff. And they're kind of locked into this anyway. Anyway, I follow fewer and fewer people nowadays. Basically anything in the media now to me just seems like a waste of time. So there are some voices out there that I think are worth listening to. And obviously you got your books and you can do your own research and use the LLM librarian and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, there are a few people that I still find interesting and I learn from. And I think they're important voices. You might not think so because maybe you don't care about these things, you know, polycrisis, collapse of civilizations and all that stuff. If you're really interested in history, you see these cycles all the time. And you also see the profound impact of our species on the planet. Biodiversity is a thing. People debate the sixth extinction and all that. What does that mean and so on? But biodiversity is extremely important. Soil health is extremely important. We don't know about that stuff. We're not interested in it. In my opinion, we're more interested in nursing the addictions that we're fortunate to have in modern techno-industrial, you know, 21st century, global north, whatever, weird culture. And that's the most important thing for us. And we're allowed to do that for now. We can afford to do that for now, but one day we won't be able to. There will be a simplification like Nate Hagens talks about, we will be living with less at some point, and that's just physics. And, looking at finite materials and so on, thermodynamics, whatever. So different people focus on different aspects of this and have slightly different opinions and takes on it because they're coming from a different perspective and a different life and all that kind of stuff. But if you listen to all of the people who are interested in reality and science, biology, physics, people who look at the grand arcs of history and cycles of history and all that kind of thing, bit by bit, patterns do show up, and things start to make sense. And it's not scary. It's not doomerism. It's just, wow, that's interesting. That's how things work. Fascinating, Ecosystems do matter. Ecocide is a thing. It has consequences, Obviously, you think you've got progress, and we have 20-year war in Vietnam. Basically, the U.S. inserted itself there in 1954, I think it was. It went to 74, and it ramped up. We have the 20-year experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it just drags on. None of it goes away. You think, oh, good, we finally got out of that. And then a new thing comes up. Who knows how long Ukraine and Russia are going to be at it. Asymmetric warfare is happening now. Call it terrorism or not, depends on your point of view, I guess. But I'm sure that the hegemon and its allies have been planning attacks within Russia for a long time. And, obviously the hegemon attacks and assassinates and does its thing. That's uncontroversial. I mean, we should know that by now. We don't have to look at Iran-Contra or any specific thing. We just know war is a racket, Schmedley, all this kind of stuff. What happened in the Philippines, what happened in East Timor, on and on and on. It's a litany. It's an encyclopedia full of war crimes and overstepping. People in Asia think we don't need your Navy patrolling the region. We can sort out our own border problems and so on. We don't need you to do it. But we have to create this enmity because it's part of the business model of the hegemon's way of doing things, rule of order or rules-based order. You can't get out of it. I mean, if people understood more, maybe they might try to do something to exercise some form of agency to create a different way of doing things, but I don't see it happening. So the best thing you can do is just be aware and then position yourself in a happy place where you can do some good and live a decent life, and come what may. If you look at things over time, nothing was a picnic for anybody, ever. I mean, I'm sure surviving 100,000 years ago was rough and painful. And, you had your high moments or whatever. Things weren't blissful in the 1930s or in 1815 on your way to Moscow in Napoleon's Grand Army or whatever it is. Life's pretty tough. Today we have it easy. It's just unbelievable how easy we have it. But not everybody, not if you're in the Congo or the Sudan or Eritrea or Chad or parts of Central America and so on. Anyway, I'll just go on like that for ages if I don't stop myself. So I'm going to start this recording here. 9/2025, the last days of Gaza. The genocide is almost complete. When it is concluded, it will not only have decimated the Palestinians, but will have exposed the moral bankruptcy of Western civilization. And it's a great article, good references in it. It's tragic as hell. I'm not going to go through it all, but I just want to point out, from my point of view, Western civilization has always been extremely brutal. Just look at the history. even going back to the Portuguese in Vietnam and so on. You just have to look at the way things are done, and throw a dart at the globe on a historical timeline, and have a quick peek. What's going on, how people are gaining power, keeping power, the rise and fall of kingdoms, and so on. It's just intense. But the West, World War One, World War Two, all these wars in Europe, for God's sake, the Habsburgs, whatever. I mean, just look at it. The rolling Russophobia for hundreds of years, and on and on and on. And you'll see it's just been brutal. 30 years war, right? 100 years war, all these religious conflicts. What happened in Ireland, the potato famine? Why did that happen? What were the preconditions necessary for all those people to starve to death? What a miserable way to die. And on and on and on. And it never ends. It's just amazing that, let's just pick a time from 1960 until now. We've had such a peaceful go of it in the global north, as it were. It's just an amazing thing, and I've been alive that whole time. So aren't I lucky? But if you look beyond that myopic bubble, you'll see that it's not that way for everybody. And it could be better. I mean, it's just tragic anyway. So he goes on and on about this, and it's so sad. There are people I've known for years who I will never speak to again. They know what is happening. Who does not know? They will not risk alienating their colleagues, being smeared as an anti-Semite, jeopardizing their status, being reprimanded, or losing their jobs. They do not risk death the way Palestinians do. They risk tarnishing the pathetic monuments of status and wealth they spent their lives constructing. I talk about that all the time. Idols. They bow down before these idols. 7 deadly sins, Moloch, whatever, the devil, Satan. They worship these idols. They are enslaved by them. At the feet of these idols lie tens of thousands of murdered Palestinians. They're basically rounding up people into places where they can be quickly deported or murdered, basically. There's a photo in here that I saw that's just, oh, it's not in this one, is it? Oh, too bad. Oh, my God. There's a photo, or several photos I saw. It's probably better not to share them with you. It's just rubble. Pancaked buildings with people's feet and hands sticking out, and crushed skulls, little children's fingers and feet dangling out of the rubble. This is insane. And the fact that we allow it to happen tells you everything you need to know about human supremacy, about how our minds work, how easily we're programmed and convinced that these things are okay, and how lazy we are, especially amidst all the addictions that we have and nurse and maintain day in and day out that make us feel good. They might not be good for us, but they make us feel good. So that's Chris. Here's another guy that I think is really good. He runs a thing on Substack called Collapse Curriculum. His name is Justin McAfee. I haven't told you about him before. So, How Power Turns Chaos into Currency. This is a really good article, and I think it's a good introduction to his work. And it brings up the LA protests and all this. But he's talking about how this was planned and engineered. It's part of the system. It's built in. It's structural. It's systemic. It's well thought out. Like I keep talking about the code of capital, or that kind of thing. The lawmakers have rigged the game and all that kind of stuff. It's so well put together, and reasoned and easy to read. I won't go through it or elaborate too much on it. But immigration policy was never about safety. The class was built, a class built to be broken. We made the fire, then blamed the smoke. The headings are great. Why they want to build a wall, a profit engine of misery, and so on. And divide, distract, exploit. If you're not familiar with the literature of these kinds of things, you've never read the Communist Manifesto or whatever. I mean, you go back in time all the way to the ancient Greeks or whatever, Mahabharata, you can get ideas about, justice and so on, and see how things have panned out recently, having all of that wisdom and knowledge and history behind us. And where do we wind up, right? It's interesting in history, you have a Buddhist renaissance or rising up of Buddhism in a region, and then something else comes along and blows up all of those sites, statues, whatever, and tries to erase it, put in their thing. We just don't want to learn from one another. We want to believe stuff. And I have all kinds of incentives, if I'm a powerful person or a leader or a king or whatever, to make you believe my story and to get you to buy into it so that I can use you. It's a mechanism of control. Stories are very powerful that way. So would collapse help or hurt? And so on. So anyway, he has these nice things at the bottom. I'm not as optimistic as he is, unfortunately. But anyhow, he says, stop financing collapse, reject privatization, end disaster, profiteering, and close the contracts that feed on failure. Protect our commons, resist dismantling public services, and build resilience through community-controlled infrastructure. And I think that's important, community-controlled infrastructure, right? We have to get some form of agency, some power back to our communities, because it's being engineered now, the whole global system, to take it all away from us. It is. We'll be allowed some addictions for a while, but those will go away too, and it's going to get harder and harder. Build alternative power, I wish. In Russia, some communities survived collapse by relying on mutual aid. In the US, we must reclaim public control from health and housing to education and water. No, he's not a Russophile. He was just bringing up how Russia collapsed, the Soviet Union, and what happened in Russia during that collapse, and how they got through it. Because the first instinct of the West was to go in there and loot the place and take it over. And the corporate takeover was resisted. And as we know, authoritarianism came in to stop it and whatever. But anyhow, it's interesting. So recognize the theater. Resist the scapegoating. Break the narratives that feed division before they corrode us into stage 4 and 5. He's talking about stages of collapse there. So collapse curriculum is good, and this is how power turns chaos into currency. I post on Minds, Globe Hackers on Facebook, and Blue Sky, BullieMT. And so if I see articles like that, that's where I put them. So I've been following the nuclear power thing for decades, fascinated by it, wanting to know if it's really going to help and so on. The Honest Sorcerer publishes good information on this, has a good take on it, in my opinion, having read some books and articles and things. I'm not an expert. It's very complicated, but this is not the panacea. Don't think it is, and it's not coming anytime soon. The marketing material that you hear, the PR, when they say, Putin is going crazy because the Tennessee Valley Authority just made a breakthrough in fusion or something like that. It's nonsense. It's complete PR. You can see right through it once you understand how that works. And it's not a panacea, it's not a silver bullet, it's not going to save us. It would be nice if we had uh, a great kind of nuclear power that could help me keep the lights on, help us keep the lights on affordably, so we didn't have to draw down our gas reserves. But at the end of the day, we still are a diesel fueled civilization. Modern techno industrial civilization is diesel fueled, and it will be for a long time. And he's pointed out before that you can't make steel or concrete with steam from nuclear power plants. So we're still in a pickle, and it's a predicament, which means it doesn't have an answer. And we haven't found any answers yet. There aren't any. So having faith in science, engineering, and technology to fix it for you, it's just not. So you might as well get ready. And hope. It's okay to hope. It doesn't mean you're infected with hopium if you're hopeful. People need to be hopeful, but don't expect it. Just stop listening to the marketing and start learning something. It doesn't hurt, and it's fun. It's exciting. So he talks about all this stuff and what it means, what modular means. Modular, what's modular? And he talks about how robots and AI aren't going to be able to weld these big, huge machines together. It's just not that simple. You need skilled technicians and workers to do this stuff still. You know, the miraculous robots aren't coming. The TESCREAL world where the universe is just a machine and you live in it forever. The wonderful ego. Can you imagine what a horror story that would be? Like purgatory. You're a digital version of yourself, stuck with your own stupid, sick, fucked up ego. And trust me, all of us have stupid, sick, fucked up egos to a certain degree. I'm not saying you're not a beautiful person and well loved and funny and great company and all that, but we all have twisted things going on, little, minds that are so vulnerable and sensitive and require so much attention and care. I mean, we're social animals, and it takes us 25 years for our brains to mature. And, maybe you have a rite of passage in some tribe or group when you're 13, or you get confirmed or whatever, but that doesn't make you a man. And what does a man mean anyway? And all this kind of stuff. We're very sensitive creatures and volatile and dangerous if we're not well taken care of. So he's talking about scalable here, SMRs, small modular reactors. They're not small, they're not modular. And are they scalable? That's a huge thing. How many can you build around the world to meet demand? It's just not what you think it is. The more you read experts in the field, the more you understand this. But of course, it requires some work and some reading, which requires spending some time doing that. And people don't want to do that. So it's much easier to read the marketing material and the PR material and listen to the propaganda. That's just keeping the game going. It's a pump and dump thing, a big breakthrough in fusion. Invest now, all this kind of thing. And you're going to make millions of dollars on the internet with AI and whatever. And meanwhile, the people really controlling the stock plays are getting filthy rich. But they have a lot of money to bet and risk. And they can afford to put a lot down on the crap table or the roulette table, to cover their bets, to hedge their bets, to look for long tails and whatnot. All these strategies that they can do. They're not geniuses. They're not smarter. They're barely better than chance, but they just have more power to front run the game, basically, and insider information and all that kind of stuff. They're going to win. You're going to get by if you're lucky and you know what to do. But generally, you're not. Yeah, I don't know. For every person that's an influencer on TikTok or whatever, and making a good living on YouTube, there are billions of wannabes that are never going to get there. And even if we did and you had millions of dollars, let's say there were billions of billionaires, how much would they consume? What would be their, footprint, carbon footprint or material footprint? You'd have most of the rich people are consuming everything. And so, more rich people, more consumption, and then you crash the whole ecology of the planet even faster. But that's one form of accelerationism. And if you're cool, if you're hip, that's cool, man. Just pedal to the metal. We got to get this thing turned into a machine that doesn't need any life forms. Doesn't need, life forms. What is life anyway? Why can't you have life on a computer chip? Why isn't the LLM conscious and alive? Why? Who are you to say? Well, whatever. So you don't have any life forms like we know in nature. It's a machine now, right? And it's all programmed and aligned with our values and coordinated. And of course, you have to ask yourself, who's it aligned with? What values, Not the kind of values that I cherish, that I believe are beautiful, not my values. But anyhow, scalable, and then he makes a conclusion here. SMRs are a perfect example of the wrong answer to the wrong question. They are neither small nor modular or cheap, let alone sustainable. The material, end-to-end life cycle, blah, blah, of materials needed for these things is complex and big. Most importantly, however, they miss a crucial point. You see, the predicament our civilization faces, besides an unfolding ecological collapse, is a peak and decline in the availability of affordable resources, most notably crude oil. No one can argue that without crude oil, we would have come to this point of modern techno-industrial global civilization. It's a requirement. So this is an issue nuclear power plants offer no viable solution to, as producing more electricity provides no answer to the loss of natural habitats or the depletion of resources, including uranium itself. Besides peak farmland, we might have already passed peak uranium. So the idea is we're in an illimitable plane, and there are just infinite resources because your guy Elon is going to send the rockets up and go get them for us. With what energy? How? And bring them back and do what? I mean, it's nuts. But you might say, well, look, the Earth's core. We'll just need the technology to get to the Earth's core. There's billions of trillions of tons of gold and everything we would ever want. It's a fantasy, folks. And by the way, we're going to wreck everything before we ever get to that point. It could take 1,000 years to figure certain things out, and we don't have that much time, in my opinion. Not to mention the fact that neither mining nor agriculture or long-distance transport could be technically electrified at the scale and at a speed needed to avoid a major economic dislocation from a peak and decline in fuel production. You see this PR and marketing for hydrogen airplanes. Don't hold your breath. And you have to look at the whole picture. So the forest for the trees problem is a huge problem. There are tipping points where a forest will go from a forest to a grassland. And planting trees, monocultures, isn't the answer. You have to have these living systems that are extremely complex. And, we don't know enough about them either. And nobody wants to know. Mycelium or whatever, mushrooms, how soil works, soil biology or whatever. The forest is something, once it's gone, it's gone. But nature can rebuild itself. If we're gone, it comes back one way or another until the supernova. But as long as we're here and we're not good stewards of nature, we could help build back nature better. Build back nature better. We could do that, but we don't want to do that because we don't think it's fun, when in reality it's more fun and fulfilling and beautiful than all the other shit we're addicted to. All the good times. And without adequate supply of diesel fuel, how on earth do we plan to continue mining and delivering the uranium, copper, and all the gazillion other materials needed to run a nuclear power plant? And if these technologies cannot be maintained properly, then pray tell, why do we need more nuclear power plants? The issue our high-tech civilization should be grappling with today is not how do we generate enough electricity or more electricity, and of course you have to always default back to maximum power principle and Jevons paradox and things like that to put these things in perspective. And none of these things are new, by the way. These concepts, these ideas. How do we reduce the overuse of resources and the pollution which comes with that, aka overshoot? Sure, using electricity from nuclear to turn the planet's dwindling natural and mineral resources into dead matter destined for the landfill is certainly more climate friendly than burning coal. And it's that Blade Runner garbage heap. That's what we're accelerating towards. And for the TESCREAL bros who know it all, they know what's coming. They just want to take advantage of everything they can right here now to get as much power, wealth, and control as they can. It's not even a conspiracy. They don't know what else to do. They're built that way. So, however, nuclear won't solve the ongoing ecocide nor pollution in general, let alone the slowly unfolding affordability crisis of heavy transport fuel, making all the mining, agriculture, and construction and destruction possible. As long as decline is upon us and no amount of hopium in the form of small modular reactors will be able to halt it on its tracks. So the more you read about these things and understand these things, it becomes impossible not to see it, right? So that's why I put my book page up on my website, because you read some of these books bit by bit, your understanding of things fills out. Doesn't mean you're a genius or you're special, but you just understand how things work better, and you're a little less vulnerable to a lot of bullshit. So there's a ton of things in here. Wetiko is interesting, but Ishmael, it's a classic. Wes Jackson, Erasing History, The Little Book of Aliens, and then I have a whole bunch of stuff on the nuclear bomb, and all that stuff. You kind of read 4 or 5 books about a thing. You don't become an expert, but it just fills things in. And here, very important stuff. Alice Friedman, Life After Fossil Fuels, Energy Return on Investment. Charles A.S. Hall, it's a must-read kind of thing. And Hyperobjects was an interesting read. Overshoot, Big Gods, all this kind of stuff. Propaganda, The Great Leveler. Anyway, I share that on the my website just because I want to suggest people get into that. So Honest Sorcerer, he's great. Follow him. And then another person for me that's a go-to, who's had a blog at Blogspot for a long time and has been deep in the weeds of these things for a long, long time, is Eric Michaels. He's a nice person. He's not too arrogant. He's not too preachy, but he knows what he's talking about. And I think he's a gentleman. I think he's earnest and considerate. And you can learn a lot from reading his stuff. As with Do the Math blog, that's Tom Murphy's blog, excellent stuff. These people will actually help you find content that you can learn something important from. And then you can go back to your addictions and to all the shit show and all that fun stuff for whatever, a half hour a day or whatever you need. But at least you'll have gotten something. So this one's Anthropocentric Narratives and Bargaining. And it's very interesting, beautiful piece. Again, I could go all through it, but I won't because it's a great article. And look at all these hyperlinks he has here. And you can go and you can vet the information for yourself and figure it out. He's big into Wetiko. That book was excellent, by the way. So Wetiko is a cultural issue as much as a psychological one and did not exist before civilization began. Technology addiction uses Wetiko. It's a kind of a mind virus as a rationalization for said addiction. So Wetiko is part and parcel of technology use and will not disappear until living arrangements are no longer dependent almost exclusively upon civilization. Once again, we like to think we are in control when in reality that is nothing but an illusion. How much control? I mean, we're a blip if you look at the history of life on Earth. We're a blip. And modern techno-industrial civilization is a blip. And there are lots of real existential threats. So let's just say strategic nuclear war could really screw us up. Okay, maybe we don't all die, but it could really put us back quite a ways. You want to believe that we're so special, God's gift to the universe, that nothing will happen to our species, but extinction of Homo, erectus and habilis and all these different species of humans is the rule, not the exception. Why should we be the exception? Because we can design a computer? Obviously, we're not slowing down and using these technologies in wise ways. And for thousands of years, we've used them just to kill each other. I mean, we make nice arts and palaces and civilizations and stuff, but we also murder the shit out of each other. So whatever, there's that, right? We're just, if we want to be around for a while, we should do something different. But anyway, doesn't matter, you need to make money and all that, I get it. At least be kind to each other, right? Just be nice, be nicer, try to be more helpful, more considerate. That's the least we can do, right? That's something we could do. We could choose to be kind. So anyway, he goes into that. I think that's fun. And he's a cool guy. So I'll just read the last paragraph. So our lack of agency here is quite intractable. And while individuals might be able to extend their relative safety for a while, sooner or later the predicaments we face will find them too. So the billionaires get whacked as well. You've got all these dictators and fascists, and at the end of their run, when they've wrecked everything and killed a lot of people through their shitty leadership, they wind up getting hung by their feet in the square, or having to shoot themselves in the head, or getting killed by the Red Army or whatever. They all die, right? And all of these TESCREAL folks and life extension folks, they're all going to die too. I'm sorry, I'm not a mean congressman or anything, but death is a thing. And I want health care, I want people to have health insurance, all that stuff. But I want you to have a long, healthy life. But eventually you're going to die, and the king's going to die too. And it's funny when you read these chronicles of kingdoms in the Middle Ages, people are dying right and left. You have a son and heir. There's no guarantee that person's going to live to be 25, or even if he does become king, not get killed by some other rival or whatever. And, we have modern medicine, but if we don't use it properly, it's not going to do us much good anymore, right? And we need resources and energy to maintain modern medicine, science-based medicine. We might want to think about investing our energy into these things rather than into making weapons for war. What a waste. Once I believed I could and strengthen and fortify my living arrangements to be collapse ready. While I did make many improvements, I came to realize that I was fooling myself. Even if I had completed all the improvements, I began to comprehend that there was literally no way to avoid certain consequences of the predicaments we face. I also started seeing the older I got, the less able I would be to physically be able to keep up with everything. So, you're farming, you're dealing with your defenses, you're canning, you're building your off-grid energy system, you're practicing with your rifle and your knife fighting skills in case somebody wants to take your shit. And you're trying to build community and alliances and allegiances and convince people that this or that is important or whatever. You're doing all these things, and as you get older, you run out of gas. I'm just hoping I can live long enough and healthy enough to finish my story, and that doesn't require that much energy. But anyway, yeah, you get older and, your brain doesn't work as well, body doesn't work as well, and so on. Living's a young man's game. I also started seeing the mitigation solutions, noble ideas about life in general. Like many folks in their 20s, I once felt as if I was invincible too. I remember when I was 35 and thinking, I still look like I did when I was 25. Wow, what am I doing? It's like when you're young, you're young. If you take care of yourself. Yeah. So now I'm in mid-60s and I'm thinking, do I look okay for my age? I don't know. But I'm not thinking that, I'm life extending or something by some magic or whatever. I'm just lucky, I guess. I don't know. Am I? Maybe not. So like many folks in their 20s, I once felt I was invincible too. The older one gets, the more he or she realizes how fragile human life truly is. The arrogant attitude changes into one with far more humility, hopefully. One would hope. Not for Donald Trump. He doesn't get humble. He doesn't do that. That's stupid. This is the wisdom of experience and the experience of wisdom that comes with maturity. So anyway, he's got lots of great stuff, Eric, and I just think he's wonderful and worth following. He's much better than me. I'm just curating here. I don't think I have much to offer. I would hope that you would think that if we hung out and had coffee or whatever, you would be happy with my company. That's the most I could hope for. So those are the things I'm sharing today, and I'll leave it at that. Time flies, but I wanted to share that with you. So have a good one. Now you can go back to watching somebody on YouTube that just talks about the news. What are they doing? What's going on in the shit show? Hey. But there's a lot out there you can learn from, and let's utilize these tools while we can, because we can. Okay, take good care. Bullion T, out.